Hello, welcome everybody to the coolest show on the internet when it comes to tabletop RPGs. Just kidding. Or maybe we are. I don't know. Welcome to the Foxton. My name is DJ Foxy. I talk to really cool people about the cool tabletop games that they create. Tonight we have a very special guest, someone who's very respected here in the Goodman Games community. I have Stefan Surratt here with us. Say hey, Stefan. How's it
Yep.
going?
Hey, folks. So yeah, Foxy invited me on to mostly talk about Elfland tonight because I wrote a pretty cool zine, I guess that it's certainly my most well received thing and the thing that it earns me the most compliments and I'm certainly really proud of it too.
Hmm. Yeah. So, first of all, when it comes to our show, when we've talked to some of our guests, we don't usually do giveaways, but tonight we actually have something really special for everybody in the chat. About halfway through the show tonight, we are going to do a raffle, so you can possibly get yourself a copy, physical
Mhm.
ink on the page copy of Elfland, Beyond the Fields We Know. So stay tuned because you can maybe win that copy. And
Yeah,
we'll,
I
we'll
think we'll do the usual like on some other things. Stick an emoji in chat and I don't know. The emojis will be kept track of. A random die will be rolled. Then whoever you got to stick around for when the randomness happens and we decide. So if you drop an emoji in the chat, stick around at least until the giveaway.
Oats. All right, Stefan. So to start things off, I got a question for you, bud. Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up at? How did your interests in tabletop gaming start?
Um, I grew up outside of Dallas, Texas. A little itty bitty town when I was a kid. Get to a McDonald's, it was like nearly an hour drive. But by the time I was a teenager, there's a mall. The suburbs came to this little country town. Um, and that was about it was like when I was 14 that I got into D&D. Like when I was little, I was like super primed for getting into it. My dad's an English teacher, so like I would ask him sometimes in like Chronicles of Narnia, The Hobbit, like Arth, like whatever book about King Arthur he had, like he'd read those to me in the pre-reading Stefan days, and then get into Goosebumps and Choose Your Own Adventure books and like the Robert Jordan books and some Weiss and Hickman, the Deathgate cycle. That was the one of theirs that got me. I like completely skipped Dragonlance and didn't know a thing about it. Um, and then so I was just like super primed to be into like fantasy and all that stuff. The actual conversion into D&D happened after the video game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which was essentially the 3.5 system, skills and feats and all that, but with the veneer of Star Wars on it. Me and a few of my buddies loved that, and then one of them actually paid attention to the opening. Like, there's like one pop up at like the very beginning of the game that's like, this is basically Star Wars or Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. We have to follow, this is a licensee thing, and we have to
Mhm.
say this. And
OGL.
yeah, back when that mattered.
Right.
um, but Buddy paid attention to that and was like, "Hey, Stefan, apparently we can just do this ourselves. Apparently, the computer's been rolling dice for us the whole time." And I was super into that. So, like many others, I actually started with a box set, but it was the 3.0 box set. Um,
Wow.
3.5 was out, but we were broke teenagers, like pretty much all teenagers out there. So the 3.0 stuff was on sale. So we got the box set. I did not make it through the first session. My pre-gen character was Lydia the Halfling Rogue,
Wow.
and I got trapped in a magic mirror for the rest of time because I was trying to get somebody out, and that didn't work. Um, and I walked home like 5 minutes after my character got stuck in there. I walked home because I was like, no, I don't want to see the next room and like the end that the rest of the party will go through because this is like a video game, right? I'll retry it later. Like if I died against a video game boss. I'll retry it later. I don't want to spoil myself. That didn't quite happen. I eventually figured out what the key differences are between a tabletop game and a video game, but they were pretty obscure to me at the beginning. And but yeah, basically since that day, I haven't gone very far or very long without playing a tabletop role playing game.
I hear that. It's interesting you mentioned KOTOR. I loved that game as a kid, man. I
Hmm.
ate it up. So I think maybe that's what got me hooked on RPGs as well.
Yeah.
Um, I can definitely relate.
Yeah, KOTOR 1 and 2 were stellar games. That I think I replayed the second one like 4 years ago, just trying to, and it was like, oh, this is still fantastic. I hate 3.5 now. I wouldn't play a pen and paper version of 3.5, but this game and this writing is still fantastic.
Something about it being Star Wars is just makes it fun, I think.
Yeah,
Honestly. But we're not talking about Star Wars. We're talking about Elfland.
yeah.
So, what is Elfland exactly?
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
It's if you're playing, uh, most people if you came from the D&D origin point, it was probably called the Feywild. And it even in D&D, I feel like I played that and read all the stuff for like over a decade and never really knew what it was. It was never very well defined or even very well implied what it was through the
Mhm.
text. I never like played in a game that went into it. But come my discovery of DCC and like one of the first adventures I bought, because I found out about DCC in like 2018. But one of the first adventures I bought was Queen of Elfland's Son because it had some sick cover art, and
Classic.
that was about enough for me. Um, and in there it also had like here's some stuff from Elfland and kind of a hook to get you into Elfland, whatever that may be, but it also had very little defined about what is what that is if you follow the rabbit hole. And I think like a lot of people also were going and looking and seeing what's out there, and there's some cool adventures out there, like Winter's Daughter for Old School Essentials. Like that's an awesome, like very fey adventure, and there's some other stuff like that. But there just wasn't much out there. So I after I ran that adventure for my buds, we didn't go into Elfland. They did other stuff. But in the back of my mind, I was always kind of going, I wish they had gone down that rabbit hole because I don't know what I would have done, but it would have been fun figuring it out.
Mhm.
Um, and but it took me a while longer to start figuring it out. But as for what it actually is, it's a very ephemeral place. I think it is the place where elves actually originate. It's probably not where your like GCC elf is born. They're probably they're the assimilated elves who are now part of the mortal world's culture, but this is
Mhm.
the OG elves. They come from Elfland, and things are very different there. It's there's a little bit implied in like the King of Elfland write up in the core rulebook, and a little bit more in the Queen of Elfland's Son adventure, but there and angels, daemons, and beings between volume 2 that has like a bunch of cool elf stuff. But all in all, there's just so little about what it actually is. So I started reading like the appendix and like inspiration stuff to try to figure that out for myself. And that's
Mhm.
where the making the whole zine all started.
Yeah, and you mentioned Appendix N. Now, a big piece of Appendix N literature concerning Elfland is King of Elfland's Daughter, book by
Hmm.
Lord Dunsany. So when writing, Elfland Beyond the Fields We Know, well, obviously it's in the title. That's
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
from
yeah. That title straight.
Yeah, straight from the
Exactly.
text. Exactly. So I mean, obviously that kind of implies that you took heavy inspiration from that original text. Is there anything you can like pinpoint that really kind of harkens to that?
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, a lot of it was like just the I mean, I used the word ephemeral earlier.
Mhm.
It's Elfland. It starts off with this guy who wants to go over and into Elfland. He has to, he meets this witch, and she, gives him some advice, gives him some good preparations. I don't know. I'm not really. I feel somewhat concerned about spoiling like 100-year-old story. Uh, I'm being a little vague.
Well, you should all go
Um,
read it, by the way.
it's really good, and it's 100 years old, so you can find like a LibriVox audiobook on YouTube. So if reading a long book that's got some flowery language is a little tough, you can get the audiobook, and it's like a lovely bedtime story. Um,
There's
that
also a piece of musical literature. I think there's a whole album. You can listen to that too.
yeah.
Yeah, it's got Christopher Lee in it actually. So
Oh, okay.
it's worth checking out. He's like the narrator. Wow, we have
I'd
got a
heard of it,
lot
but I
of
but I hadn't.
emotes in chat.
We
Way
got
to
a
go,
lot.
guys. Epic.
I'll say I when I did the Kickstarter for this, there's actually also you can go check out about the first minute on the whole Kickstarter page, but if you go into YouTube and search Elfland Beyond the Field Suite, no, or actually no, not that. Search King of Elfland's Daughter,
Mhm.
um, and search something like Dungeon Synth. You will find a original song that was made, and I got to use it for my like Kickstarter intro video. Um,
Ooh,
and
Dungeon Synth.
yeah, uh, and I made that deal. Let me see. I'm searching now, trying to be
Yeah,
like,
if
am
you
I
have
am
the
I saying
link,
the
go
right
ahead and
thing? Done.
the Dungeon Synth. Yeah, yeah, that's probably definitely the terminology. If you have a link to that, go ahead and drop it in chat. You're welcome to, if you can find it. But
I'll
no,
I'll drop it in a little. I'll find it halfway through, and I'll
yeah,
drop it and say it
for
again
sure.
at
We'll be like,
some
hey,
point.
here's the music, y'all.
Yeah. But the music is really good. It's an original song by Loot the Body. So maybe it's not
Ooh,
quite Dungeon Synth, but it's that prog rock kind of style Loot the Body does.
ooh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm big fans of Loot the Body. We're actually gonna have Skate Wizards on the show next month. So,
Oh, nice. Yeah, Skateworks is awesome. But yeah, I emailed them over at Loot the Body. I was like, hey, you've done this for some other stuff. It'd be really cool if this. I have no clue how much you would want to be paid or anything because I've never commissioned
hmm.
music before. But like, this is like the vibe I'm going for. And the response was like, yeah, I kind of have something that I wrote a long time ago, but never made a song out of. The song is very much like the lyrics are all about, and it's really inspired by the Dunsany book, King of Elfland's Daughter. And I was like, dude, that is perfect. That's like I didn't name that, but that's we have the same inspiration point that, and we both love it. So
That's
I used
awesome.
so and eventually Link the Body also made like a cool music video for it. So go check that out on YouTube, and it's super cool.
Yeah, I
And
just dropped
give it
on my
some listen.
personal channel. I dropped that link in chat there. So y'all go check that Loot the Body video out. It's super cool. Very Faye vibes there.
Hmm.
So okay, cool. So you're responsible for that song. That's awesome. I love that
in
song.
in a way I am. Yeah. They kind of like they're like I wrote this and worked on it like 3 years ago, but never finished it. So
Mm,
I sent over some money as the kind of pressure to finish it, and all the backers got a copy off of the Bandcamp as well, so they got to have that, and that was really cool.
very cool. Yeah, actually, I have a bunch of I had some Loot the Body stickers that I was sent just for being a super fan, I guess. Yeah, good stuff. Anyhow, let's see here. So
Yeah, I can
what
jump back to Elfland.
makes uh what so I kind of have a question query about your particular vision of Elfland.
Hmm.
So when it comes to your version of Elfland, what makes it different than like a bog standard fantasy campaign setting, you think?
Um, I would say part of it is in my little zine. I thought long like there are some maps of small areas in there, but there's not a map of whatever Elfland like me because I don't think it's like a place that you could make a map of.
Mhm.
Um, I think it is like all it is simultaneously like stagnant and non-changing but always changing like in the book it says like not a moment passes until all of Elfland has experienced it and but everything seems to always be changing at the same time when you read the book like there's so much going on so it's this very like it's very hard to capture and I tried to convey that in the book so, a journey through Elfland is going to be more about the experience. You're not going to be able to do a hex crawl. You would be able to, roll on weird encounter tables of like the crazy events that you get involved with. Don't roll on like what kind of monsters appear in this area because it doesn't really matter so much if it's wooded or watery. It's the uh, maybe shenanigans is not quite the right word, but it's close. Like that's going to be what shapes your time in Elfland. And I also it's a place that stays with you. You see that in the story by Dunsany of just like you go into Elfland and like it's gonna change you. Anything, a part of you is always gonna be drawn to it. Um, and even if you try to stay away, you're gonna feel that call. And I put that in my little zine too. So it's a hard to define place. But the I would say there's like these pockets of like this spot is going to stay the way it is, but your path to it, you won't travel the same path twice. You never could. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think it might be as solid as I can get. I also really, I didn't try to overly define what it could be because it's going to be different depending on what you want out of it for your game group.
Mhm. And you mentioned groups, but also something I read was that it also has options for solo journaling play. Now that's really
Hmm.
interesting to me, the idea of playing like a tabletop game as like a solo kind of experience. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. I think solo journaling games they like existed pre-COVID, but they got a lot more attention during that when we weren't going outside. And I'd played a few, like Bucket of Bolts is a really cool one. Thousand-Year-Old Vampire is an awesome one. And then there's other like more like tactical solo games like Rune. Um, that I wrote a few things for that as well. So I got into solo games and over COVID, and that it wasn't a part of my plan when I originally started putting this together with the idea of like I'll make a cool zine out of this. Um, but it became a part of it. I realized that as I got through the book more because I started writing this before I finished the Dunsany story. Um, but as I went through it, I realized I was like writing these like interesting tables kind of as I was inspired by those sections in the book. So it was already kind of lending itself to that uh, progression, that narrative progression. But and when I started thinking about it, I was going, oh, okay, hey, I'm going to look at, the Bucket of Bullets and Thousand-Year-Old Vampire and see how they did it, see if I can do this. And I was thinking that this would actually be like a really good value for most people because like how many game books do we have on our shelves or in our PDF library where we go, oh, that'll be cool. I hope I get to use it one day. Um, and that might be years. I sure know I'm a part of that. But I thought, hey, if I can make it into like, I can redo the table of contents to make it so that it's these questions and that refer to the pages, so it's still useful as a table of contents. But I put all these questions in it so that if you go through them and start writing stuff down, you're going to create like a cool NPC that maybe is just some fun that you have on your own because your game group didn't want to go into Elfland or
Mhm.
you're not running a game at that time, or maybe you create your NPC and they're going to become your like the NPC that is your hook to get your game group into Elfland. But at very least, it won't. You have no excuse for it being yet another game book that sits on your shelf for years and never actually is anything other than something you like skim through once ago. Oh, that's cool. One day. So that's why I wanted to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like I guess it would almost create a natural like it would like build that world of Elfland, like that
Hmm.
that solo play story could almost like set the stage for what the campaign could be later. That's kind of a cool idea. I'm vibing with that
Yeah.
actually.
If
Um,
you look at
yeah.
Wasabi Burger, he did a Twitch stream and it's up on his YouTube channel now. He did like a thing like that and created a really cool NPC that I think was named Billiam Bean, who started out as a beekeeper and boy, that trip to Elfland absolutely ruined that guy's life. Um, absolutely ruined it. But he's such a cool character now. Um, so that's like a good example if anyone wants to go catch that on YouTube by Wasabi Burger.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely go check out Wasabi. Everything he makes is super cool. I got the pleasure to play some X Crawl with him. It's good stuff. Great member of the community. And
Hmm.
if you ever want to play with Wasabi or Stefan, actually, we have a whole server for that, the Dungeon Crawlers server. So definitely look into that. You
Yep,
can play a
yep.
lot of DCC there, should you want to. All right. I think at this point, I think this is our time to roll to see who gets
Yeah,
our prize copy.
sounds good. So how Elena, how many folks? What die should I roll?
The
Four.
D4?
Oh, all right, a D4, folks. Last chance. We're like I don't know, a few seconds ahead of the chat, so
Mm-hmm. If you want
we'll
to
give
spam
it.
some emojis, go for it.
Yeah. But if you've already spammed them, additional spams don't get you extra entries, unfortunately. And in the chat,
Yes.
yes, yeah, Foxy,
Yes,
you can answer that.
Knoxwell. Yeah, we totally on Discord. That's what I'm talking about. Dungeon crawlers. They're easily accessible. You know what?
Yeah, it
Let's see if
there'll
we
be
can
a
link
link
it.
in the chat shortly. It sounds like, but I rolled my D4 and it became up result number 3.
Nice.
Well,
Well, there.
Commando Solo 193, that is you. So I believe if you can whisper to Batani Maru, um, give Batani your email address and then I'll get your email address from Batani, and I'll reach out to you. I'll get your address so I can mail this off to you.
Very cool. And there's a link to the Discord as well. Femboy Reads right there. That's me. And that's our Discord. So if you guys want to get on there and play some dungeon crawl, I actually plan to run some Elfland at some point. So if you want to play this game, joining that server is a good place to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyhow, congrats on that win there, Commando. And I think we are going to actually at this point have
I mean,
I'm let's see here. We're going to take some few questions from chat. If you guys have any questions in chat, I'm going to see what else you guys are saying though.
yeah.
Looks like
I
Knoxwell says I'm having Gen Con withdrawals. I understand. I almost feel like I wish I could be at Gen Con the whole year. It's just so much fun.
and I see that. Yeah, I can absolutely autograph the book. That's fine. Like I said, get your email address to Vitani, and I'll get the email address from there later. But I'll shoot you an email. Get your name. Write a little hi name. Game on and something like that. But yeah, I'll write something. But yeah, I don't. We can talk about specifics in Elfland. I mean, we can like run through it, and I can be like, "Oh, well, this is a weird reference to this thing, and this is a weird reference." And if I don't know if that's interesting to folks, but there's a whole bunch, some of them is kind of more, I may not be able to go. That's a reference to this, but like the different locations and a number of the different items I can go. Oh yeah, I stole that from an episode of Adventure Time, or oh yeah, that's from this place. Um, or I
You know, it's,
combined these two random things that I remembered, and they worked perfect for this.
yeah, I was wondering about those items. Like you do have like a chart of different types of items people could find,
Mhm.
right? What's your favorite on that list
Yeah,
that
so
you
I
could
got
share?
a D8, or no, sorry, D10 item thing on here. I think my favorite one, I really like the singing sword, which is a mithril longsword, that when you swing it, it actually makes music, and it's like engraved with a musical scale on it. Um, and it and but it in there it, you roll initiative with a D14. Your battle song starts slow, but you get a +1 die bonus to saves against like sonic based attacks or anything that has like an auditory effect, like charm person would or something. I really like that one. Partially just because I made that up in an old campaign that I was running for Buddy, so that's one that I really like because of just the nostalgia factor. The I'll say my other two favorites. I'll talk about three, I guess. The Key of Ways, which is like a little mithril key that you can use to find your way through Elfland and kind of like unlock these shortcuts in the natural world, and then you'd go down this elven corridor, but you might get harassed by some people who are guarding it, similar to if you were rolling the War Horn of Elfland spell, which is a patron spell of the King of Elfland. And um, that one is kind of a reference to something that is done in the Dresden Files book series. So I really dig that one too, and that's like a cool one that can I like that because it can do a lot of story elements. And
Are you referencing
number
the Wild Hunt specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wild Hunt specifically, but they also do that kind of corridor thing in, I don't know, like book 14 or 15 or just
Mm.
I think probably 14. It's been a while since I've read those. But I devoured those when I first found out about them. Then they didn't come out for a few years, and I haven't picked them back up since they've started up again.
Mm.
But I also like the dagger of conspiracy. That's also definitely top three, which is like a mithril dagger, looks like a raven, and when you kill somebody with it, a raven will start watching you, and every additional person you kill with that dagger, now the raven's going to start watching you. They're going to eat from your victims. If you want to
Ooh.
try to get rid of these ravens, um, they're always going to hang out. If you kill them, they're going to return the next day. Only they're going to be like all they're gonna look gross. They're gonna look like they've been maimed and scarred, but they're gonna be functioning ravens. And if you actually want to, and if you try to get rid of the dagger, it's always gonna find its way back to you, like a
Okay.
creepy curse. And the only way to actually get rid of it is you have to heal others, and for each life saved, one of those ravens, disappears. And when you've back down to 0 ravens, that's when you can get rid of the dagger.
Ah, cursed weapons are always super fun. Somebody Commando actually is asking, when you're
Oh yeah.
making the items, do you also think about how they would work outside of Elfland? So it's not so overpowered outside of that realm. I guess he's just kind of
Yeah.
curious how things would
Um,
change.
yeah, I tried to make it so like none of the items are gonna be like game breaking. I mean, some are a little bit more than others. The nice thing about writing a zine that is not like an adventure is you don't have to balance stuff as much. You don't have to worry about that quite so much. Um, but I tried to make it so that none of them are gonna break the game. You're not gonna have that. You might have some cool items for sure, some cool magic, but nothing ruining things. I said also a question in there about like the fake curses. Those might ruin a character a little bit more. Um, I put a curses in there and kind of a curse system. Um, and some of them might be like, let me see, I'm looking here. Curse of the Trees and your flesh becomes paper-like. Bark grows in place of toenails. Grass and flowers sprout from your scalp. You
Ew.
know, so you're gonna get a bonus on stealth checks in woodland environments. You know that would make sense. But you're gonna be unrecognizable to anyone who knew you before that. Um, so the curses can be really bad. That one's kind of, I'd say, middle of the road, maybe towards the worst side. But the curses aren't always permanent. The little system in there, it might last, a D7 days. It might last a D7 years and a D7 days, or it might be permanent, or some stuff in between.
That's crazy cool. Let's see here.
Oh,
What else we got?
yeah, more questions. Yeah, Commander Solo, I'll answer. Why the? I also so I was asking about a Christopher Robin's Nightmare, an adventure I wrote. Also did it in the
Oh.
same Kickstarter with this. Um, Eeyore does not have his tail at the start of that. I did the Christopher Robin adventure. That was it started out as a joke. I made it when Winnie the Pooh became public domain. I made a joke online about like, hey, who's ready to help me make the 100 acre hex crawl? And
That's
and
great.
and there's like a bunch of responses be like, dude, you got to do that. That sounds awesome. And 100 hexes for 100 acre hex crawl was way too much. So I wrote a point crawl and took a lot of brainstorming for a while. But it literally takes place in Christopher Robin's nightmares. Um, he's like a full grown adult, but you go in there and it's the 100 acre woods. I the map of that adventure is the map from the original Winnie the Pooh, just slightly edited. Um, and so you start out in Pooh's house, and it's kind of it's a literal dream. So there's like a random encounter table for if you want to kind of extend things, but as written, it's probably like, hey, if they want to go somewhere and they kind of are doing it along these lines, just let them go there because you don't remember how you got somewhere in a dream, when you're actually dreaming. You just arrive there. um and so at the very beginning, Pooh's being like basically antagonized over his last pot of honey by some elves, and you get to save Pooh Bear. And
Nice.
then it's you find a note from Christopher Robin that basically says, hey, I'm in horrible trouble, get all the friends and come to my house, and or as many as you can in whatever kind of time span that you're running your game in, and come to my house for a final confrontation. Sure. Doesn't quite say that, but that's essentially how it goes. So, and there's different challenges at all the different locations, that I tried to make very like themed with the kind of, if elves entered and the dreams of Christopher Robin and tried to turn his dream of the 100 acre woods and all those good times into a nightmare, how would they uniquely ruin the lives of the different people therein, except for Tigger, because he's not public domain until next year. So Tigger is not there. There are some legally distinct wildcats on the random encounter table, but none of them have stripes.
That's hilarious. So like I guess there's like an elf kind of plot thread in the Christopher Robin's
Mm-hmm.
Nightmare. So like feasibly you could like connect that to Elfland somehow. Like you could go
Yes.
from the nightmare into Elfland, perhaps.
Yeah, there's as written, it really starts out in the mortal world, but I've got like a little side note blurb of like, here's how you start it in Elfland. And
Nice.
it was in like a double feature adventure thingy. So the other one is it's Christopher Robin's Nightmare and the Blood Rose Curse. The Blood Rose Curse is kind of like, let's give Beauty and the Beast a horrible ending where when Belle leaves to say bye to her family and say, I'm gonna go stay with Beast, she is unable to return, so the curse is never broken. That is also kind of yeah. And in chat, how'd you ever come up with Beauty and the Beast merged with Hellraiser? Well, the secret is your wife loves Beauty and the Beast, and you rewatch it a few times, and then you watch the John Cocteau one because she's like, "This is great," and you're like, "Wow, this old French black and white version of this is really good too. Very different take." And then you start reading all the different versions of Beauty and the Beast because there are so many versions from so many like regions of Europe and all that, and more than just Europe. and so you pick and choose all your favorite parts of it, and your brain is kind of always if you're me, your brain is always kind of operating whenever you see any piece of media and going, how can I make that fun for the games that I am thinking about probably too much? And how do you merge it with Hellraiser? Um, well, you just like Hellraiser a lot, and you go, man, that's a great movie. Uh, and you go, how can I make Beast horrible and make everything even worse in this curse? Let's put some Hellraiser in there.
Man, I have questions about that. Like is Beast a Cenobite or who's the Cenobite?
There's
What's
no.
going on?
It's more like whenever Beast, he's like going, I need to find my bell. Or
Mhm.
whenever someone goes into the manor because they need a place to stay. There's no box in it, but it's the like how Frank regenerates with the blood doing the like reverse evaporation or whatever it looks like and
Mm.
getting sucked into the floorboards like
Oh, I
you
love
know
that scene.
Beast. Yeah, it's such a cool effect. But like that's when it's like Beast, he'll die because it's just been so long. He's had this curse. He's never lifted the curse, but he's died of his natural lifespan, and get some more of that blood and that life force. And he's good again. And I put a mechanic in there, like when you confront Beast, he's got this much health, but for every like point of HP that the PC's lost, that would have resulted from blood being spilled, he's got bonus HP.
Oof, that sounds
Um,
hard to deal with.
yeah, yeah. Depending on if a cautious group will have a cautious and careful, they're gonna have a much better time than PCs who get hit a lot, for sure.
That's how
And,
DCC works, y'all.
yeah,
Dungeon Crawl Classics is kind of dubbed the world's deadliest RPG. So when you're rocking with us, you're subject to die.
yeah. I don't know. It's definitely not that. I mean, my you go play Paranoia or Call of Cthulhu, like I don't know. DCC has that reputation from the funnel, but it's easier than it's less lethal than most OSR type games after you get to level one.
I just start hacking off limbs. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you don't want to die? All right, I'm gonna take your arm.
Yeah. Try to
Just
get the
rolling
cleric
out.
to fix that.
Right, right. That's true. Yeah. Gotta reseal those bones, put things back together.
Mhm.
So if somebody cuts off an arm, could you have like in your opinion, would you have a cleric be able to heal that back onto somebody? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. That's on the that's in the core rulebook
That's
of
raw.
you look at the cleric, that's raw, yeah.
Mm.
You look at the cleric and there's that like hit die for damage. I don't know if it's so there's like it's like you can repair broken limbs and you
Right.
can repair organ damage. So and then disease and paralysis and poison and blindness and deafness. The cleric can heal all those in lieu of hearing um instead of healing just normal HP. So if it can like you know all that's kind of stuff, I would assume that they can reattach a hand. I've allowed it in my game, so um, it's not explicitly spelled out. So I don't know if it's technically rules as written, but I think it's quite implied.
Stefan will let you put your hand back on. That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, I'm generous like that.
I might take it from you. To each their own. Anyway, y'all, it's been a great show. Thanks everybody for hanging out in chat and asking all these really cool questions. Happy to give out a copy of the book and really happy to have you on the show, Stefan. Where can
Yeah.
people find you on the internet?
I'm on that Dungeon Crawlers Discord server a lot. I technically have a Twitter account, but I'm not hanging out on there anymore. I also technically have a Blue Sky account, but I'm not really hanging out on there much either. All that stuff I'm at. If you look at DM Bad Wrong Fun, is my very tongue-in-cheek user handle I go by. But the easiest place to actually get in touch with me, you can just shoot me an email, dragonpeakpublishing@gmail.com. That's my fancy name for the one man show that is me. Um, and I have a Substack where I do like a newsletter thing, and I'll talk about stuff, products I'm gonna do, but I've also I'm trying to be better about just like writing interesting stuff that can be like food for thought for folks. I've also got like one post that people have been like, that was really useful, and it was like a really transparent post about like, hey, so you guys see, I made money from Elfland. That kickstarted really well. So that must mean my profit margin is like 90% probably, right? It's all words. No, it's actually far less. Here's how like an actual breakdown is. So if there's some prospective designers and self publishers out there, that might be a useful newsletter blog post thing to go read through and go, oh no, profit. There's a reason people don't do this as a full-time job very often. Um, but that is at dragonpeakpublishing.substack.com. So those are the different spots I'm at online.
And we're gonna link all of that when we upload to YouTube and other platforms as well. So check out that description and definitely check out everything that Stefan's doing because as you guys have heard, there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
Yeah, and I'm trying to help out other folks too. Like I'm gonna help out someone else with their own Kickstarter where like I'm doing layout and kind of managing their Kickstarter for them. So for there's no like pre-launch link yet, but it'll be called Prisoners of the Secret Overlords. And probably kickstart sometime in September is the current plan, but it'll be a really cool adventure. It's kind of a very like expedition to the barrier peaks inspired thing, but the dude I'm working with, David, he's written an enormous adventure. It's gonna be like, since I'm doing the layout, I know it's gonna end up probably being close to like a 60-page long module. It's enormous, so it'll take you a lot of sessions to get through it.
So expedition, huh? So
Yeah.
aliens.
Crashed bioship, aliens, mad
Something weird.
organic technology, and of course the PCs don't know any of that when they get into it at the beginning, but they'll figure it out by the end.
Nice. All right, yo. Well, I think with that, we will be out. So long, internet world, and see you next month. Peace out.